how it all began. In June, I went to see a doctor. One of the issues we addressed was my current weight. I weighed 232 pounds. I enjoy eating what most people would consider healthy foods. I did not like meat from the time I was born. I did not like the taste. I did not like the feel. I avoided it as often as possible. I also did not like cow's milk from the time I was born. I didn't really like eggs, as they would sometimes affect my stomach negatively. I was picky with cheese. I do have an infinite love of good butter. I had sweets occasionally. I'd say less than the normal amount compared to those around me. I enjoyed the occasional fried food, with French fries being my favorite. But foods like that never outweighed my love of watermelon. Now, I will tell you, I have struggled with my weight for many, many years. I would say the struggle started in 8th grade. I was not fat, but I wanted to be skinnier. From 8th grade on, I was consistently either not caring about my diet or only caring about my diet. In high school, I was considered a very healthy weight. I weighed 118 pounds and had 6% body fat. I found a love of dance, springboard diving, and weightlifting. As was the diet fad of that time, fats were the enemy. Carbs were cool, but fats were not allowed. And I love that because I could eat all the pasta and rice I wanted. I would add vegetables and enjoy the fuck out of those meals. It was around this time that I started realizing that I was struggling to lose weight. Yeah. I weighed 118 pounds with 6% body fat. I did not need to lose weight, but wanted to be leaner. I started noticing that I needed to eat half the amount of food and do twice the amount of activity. Thank God I could eat all the pasta and rice I wanted. Shortly after high school, I became pregnant. I was 20. It was the first time in a long time that I fed my body what it craved. And it craved some unusual things for me. I would eat McDonald's sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins every chance I could get. I craved shrimp, milk, sour cream, cheese, eggs, and I ate them all. I gained 40 to 50 pounds during my first pregnancy. After my son Tanner was born, I immediately started caring only about my weight loss. I focused hard, as I had learned to do, which meant I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day and doing concentrated physical activity at full capacity for as long as I could every day. Because I knew when it came to weight loss, intensity matters. I could only do all out for like 20, 30 minutes. And the rest of the 2 to 4 hours, I would spend walking or hiking or some sort of physical activity. I lost weight. Yeah. For years, I continued the cycle. Lose focus, gain weight, focus, lose weight, repeat. Around the age of 23, I discovered my passion for ballet dancing. It was a passion like I had never experienced before. At the time, I weighed 140 pounds. I started taking ballet classes with David Hardy and absolutely fell in love with it from the first millisecond I stepped into the studio. After my first ballet class, I visited my mom. I was telling her about the class, and I said, all of the dancers were so young and thin, and here I am jumping around like an elephant. She replied, yeah, I wondered how you'd feel about being the fattest one in class. I weighed 140 pounds. When I got pregnant with my daughter, Kayliana, I became very ill. I was put on bed rest during month 4. I was gaining 12 pounds a week. I had preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. There was so much amniotic fluid inside of me that I had to go to the doctors 3 times a week to make sure everything was okay and the baby was alive. After delivery, I figured I would focus on losing the weight I had gained. When I checked into the hospital for delivery, I weighed 212 pounds. After my daughter Kayliana was born, I started the cycle again. Focus, lose weight, lose focus, gain weight, repeat. Cut to present time. 20 years later. I'm sitting in the doctor's office once again, pleading with her to help. By this point, I had little faith in the medical community regarding weight loss. No one believed me. I could not lose weight. I had been told I was lying about what I ate. I had been told I was fat because I was lazy. I'd been told I was lying about the amount of physical activity I was doing. I felt defeated. But here I was, once again, being vulnerable. This doctor informed me that I was fat because I ate too many carbs and I should look into the carnivore diet. At that moment, I decided I needed to prove to the doctors, myself, and everyone around me that carbs were not my problem. I decided to go on an all-meat diet for 3 months. I remember thinking, I only hate meat, but I can do it. It's not like it's going to kill me. It almost killed me. In June, much to the surprise of my fiance Patrick, I started an all-meat diet. In the span of those 3 months, I did have about 5 peaches and a few other non-meat items, but I was very strict. At the time, I was working as a phlebotomist and infusion aide in the oncology unit at Marshall Medical Center. I was walking 4 to 7 miles a day. Most days I averaged 5 to 6 miles of walking, but 7 or 8 was not unusual. I started the meat diet in June. I was walking 5+ miles a day. At the end of 3 months, I had lost 4 pounds. I was devastated. I was also validated. About 2 weeks into my diet, I started having diarrhea. That shocked me because I figured eating meat, no fruits or vegetables, would have the opposite effect. The subreddits I visited, which is where I was getting a lot of my information about the carnivore diet, said that diarrhea was normal and it would eventually figure itself out. So, don't worry. I'm fine. About 6 weeks into my meat diet, I started getting bloody diarrhea. First, I wasn't concerned and figured it was hemorrhoids. Eventually, the blood became concerning. I went back to my doctor and told her. She gave me suppositories for my hemorrhoids. They didn't help. After a couple of weeks, I went back to the doctor and she gave me a steroid cream to use. Didn't help. I was speaking with Melinda, who was a wonderful friend and also a nurse. I was describing my symptoms and I might have showed her a picture of my bloody poop. Thanks, Melinda. She asked if I had been tested for C. diff. By this point, I had started seeing another doctor. I had started developing liver pain and I was trying to get my blood pressure under control. I looked at the tests that had been run and C. diff was not on them, so I went to the doctor one more time. By this time, I was experiencing intense liver pain. My doctor sent me to the ER, as that was the fastest way to address a liver issue and also get a colonoscopy scheduled for my intense bloody diarrhea. My sweet Dr. Shaw. She did have to do a little convincing, but I reluctantly went to the emergency room. In the ER, I was given a CAT scan with contrast. It was then that I found out that I had mild thickening of my colon. The doctor suspected some kind of colitis, which is an inflammation of the colon lining. Interestingly enough, my son Tanner was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at age 18 after many, many years of being sick. Crohn's and colitis are related diseases and also genetic. Up until this point, we had no idea where the genetic gene pool Tanner had gotten his Crohn's from. Spoiler alert. It's me. My colonoscopy was scheduled for 6 weeks out on December 21st. During those 6 weeks is when I experienced my closer to death moment. I would not classify it as a near-death experience because I knew I was not going to die naturally. I did, however, contemplate unaliving myself because the pain was something I was not sure I wanted to live with any longer. While waiting 6 weeks for my colonoscopy, I became sicker and sicker. I was pooping bloody diarrhea up to 30 times a day. Liquid was not being absorbed. I was becoming dehydrated. Going to the ER was normal. Each time I was treated for my symptoms and told that we would know more after the colonoscopy. At some point, my body began to shut down. I looked at my now husband, Patrick, and said, I can't take care of our puppy Mooney anymore. I need sleep. I needed to be left alone. I needed to lay in my bed and not be disturbed. For the next couple weeks, I laid in bed, in pain, trying to remove all sensory distractions. I kept earplugs in my ears. I laid with my eyes closed. I laid still. I only left bed to poop 20 to 30 times a day. While I was working at the oncology unit, I had experienced seeing people at various stages of being alive. When I would see myself in the mirror, I identified with the patients who I knew were closer to death than life. Patrick said there were a couple times he came out to check on me and he thought I was dead. It was during one of these rests that I had my come to Jesus moment. I was talking to my spirit guides. Talking to my spirit guides is something I do all the time. I said, look guys, I'm over this. I need some insight as to what's going on. I don't want to do this anymore. If I'm going to live through this, I need help. Or else I'm going to help myself not live. The reply I received was so heartwarming. Before I tell you the reply, I'd like to share a little background. When my Uncle Archie knew he was going to die, he asked me to help him pass. I was honored. He liked to sleep in his chair, and I gave him a bell to ring for when he might need me. He would ring the bell gently if he needed something soon. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go get the bell. Come with me. It adds to the story. Story, journey. All right. It was apparently my grandma's bell. It says, "Happy birthday, Doris," on it. So, all right, here we are. Uncle Archie knew he was gonna die. He asked me to help him pass. He liked to sleep in his chair. He had a bell to ring for when he might need me. He would ring the bell gently if he needed something soon. He would ring the bell hard if it was an emergency. So here I was having a conversation with my spirit guides. I had just asked them for some clarity on my situation. They told me, "You are not going to die. You are not as sick as you think you are. You are not well, but you will heal. You have some side quests to accomplish." While I was receiving that message, in the background was Uncle Archie giving me his message. He was ringing that bell with vengeance. His message to me was, "Man, fuck these guys. I want to see you. Come home if you want. The water's warm." I always loved Uncle Archie's honesty. From that moment on, I returned to my meditative state. On December 21st, I had my colonoscopy. The doctor said it was one of the worst cases of ulcerative colitis he had ever seen. He could not even finish the scope because he was afraid it would perforate my colon lining. A few days before Christmas, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I was immediately admitted to the hospital for treatment. On Christmas Eve, I came home from the hospital. It was a rough couple days. I was in intense pain, but I was healing. Each day I was getting a little bit stronger. But I was gaining more than just strength. I was gaining insight. Insight in a way I had never received before. I've received insight before. I knew this was the beginning of another spiritual level up. I recognized and accepted it. I've had many spiritual level ups in this lifetime. So I knew what I was feeling. I knew what I was experiencing. I was, however, not prepared for how intense it has become. When I started feeling better, I had an intense, almost manic energy and drive to accomplish some things. Mostly little tasks that were focused on making my life easier. Things like clearing out clutter, organizing my clothing. I was a little more hyper-focused, but I knew a certain level of hyperfocus comes with spiritual leveling up. So I just like flowed with it. My sweet Babu Patrick began to notice. I tried to play it cool at first, but eventually I knew I needed to ask him if he would please join this journey with me. With my infinite gratefulness.